The next thing that happens, with just a little rebellion, comes to denying God altogether. Because you'll rebel against God and his commandments, and you say, no, God, I don't want to do those things. I'll do the things that I like to do, that I think are easy, but I don't want to do the difficult things. It's a rebellion. But what it turns into is it turns into denying God altogether. Because pretty soon, all of the commandments of God aren't something that you just want to do anymore. You want to do the things that you want to do. And in doing the things that you want to do, you're not only rebelling against God, but then you find yourself denying his name altogether. This is what I believe Paul is talking about here in verse 5, when he says they have a form of godliness, but they deny its power. What does he mean by that? Look at our world today, where they say, oh, everybody love one another. Be kind to one another. Give justice. Do justly. Even if that means, even in your own culture, even if it's just social justice, we need to give justice. Yes, those are godly things. Love, kindness, mercy, justice. Those are godly things. Those are things that God instituted. And yet they deny God in doing those things, which is why we see that those things never really take root. Yes, they say the right things, but they don't do the right things. Because those things are things that only God can empower you to do. You could say all day long, oh, I want to be kind to people today. I want to be a kind person. But you understand that being loving and kind and giving justice aren't things that your natural man does. Just inherently. Those are gifts from God. And so if you deny God, the creator that gave you those gifts, then those gifts no longer have any power. They're useless. So it starts with a rebellion, and then it goes to denial. And pretty soon you're in a place where you're just doing whatever you want, and you're going out and just sinning. Throw that back up. Oh, you got it. Good job. Number 3, you're in a place where you're just disobeying God. You know the right things to do, and yet you're not doing them. You know what God has commanded you to do, and yet you're not doing it. You see how this can snowball just from one little instance of rebellion. It could snowball into something so much greater. Look, this is how all sins are. It starts small. It starts with one little deviation. And next thing you know, it could take over your life. It could take over the life of your family. And it could be passed to the next generation so easily. Man, I got it in my family. Woo-wee! Telling you. I got you look at this list, I got all these things. Man, I got drug addiction. I got alcohol addiction. I got sexual immorality, infidelity. I got anger and bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness. My grandma is 90 years old. Almost. She's about to be 90 years old. She has not been married to my grandfather in almost 70 years. Do you know that she still talks about the things that he did to her today? Still. It has taken over her life. It started with just a little bit of unforgiveness, a little bit of resentment. And over 70 years, it's grown into a giant thing that has totally overcome her. So much so that she's a slave to it now. She can't even live her own life because this unforgiveness has taken over her life. You see how it's just, even something like even unforgiveness can take over your life, and it could get passed to the next generation. Can I tell you that my mom is the exact same way with my dad. They haven't been married in 30 some years. The same way. Do you think unless she makes a decision, a conscious decision, to say, you know what, God, I'm done. I'm done with my sin. I'm done with my unforgiveness. I'm done with my bitterness and my resentment. I want to be out of it. Unless she makes that conscious decision, she'll be 90 years old doing the exact same thing. Don't tell me that unforgiveness isn't a generational sin, because it is. It may seem small, but it's not. Any sin could seem small, but it's just not. It's just not. Look, if you want to get rid of those things in your life, if you want to get rid of those generational sins, you know you could do it, right? We all have them in our life, one way, shape, or form. But you know what God has ministered to me in my life, because that's just one line. This is a tree out here, right? I got lines everywhere coming down to where I am. And everybody with their own thing. And you know what God ministered to me in this? He said, look, I know who I made you. You understand what I'm saying? He said, I know who I made you. You don't have to be the person that your parents are. You don't have to be the person that your grandparents are. And you don't have to be the person that your great-grandparents are. You could be different than that. And I know the sins have been passed down the line. I know what family I put you in. I see the things happening, but I put you here for a reason. And that reason is to stop these things from happening any longer and being passed down anymore. It only takes one person to say, I'm done. It only takes one person to say, I don't want this anymore. And all those things can change. All those things can stop.